3 women died. Doctors performed no autopsies, and the experiments continued for years. They gave poor Puerto Rican and Black women birth control pills 3 times stronger than what white women received, and told them nothing about the risks. This is the story of medical racism America buried. It started in 1955. Biologist Gregory Pincus and obstetrician John Rock were developing the first oral contraceptive. But there was a problem. Massachusetts, where Pincus worked, had laws that made birth control research effectively illegal. He couldn't test the pill there without risking jail time. So they needed another place. A place where they could experiment without consequences. They chose Puerto Rico. According to PBS's American Experience, the island was perfect. It was a U.S. territory with no anti-birth control laws. More importantly, it had a network of birth control clinics already in place. And the women were poor. The women were vulnerable. The women could be controlled. But here's what Pincus and Rock weren't telling anyone. They weren't just testing a new drug. They were testing it on women without their informed consent. The women at these clinics were told they were receiving a medication that prevented pregnancy. They were never told they were part of a clinical trial. They were never told the pill was experimental. They were never told about the potential dangers. According to historical records, the pill they tested contained 3 times more hormones than the version that would later be approved for American women. 3 times stronger. The side effects were immediate and severe. Women reported blood clots, spotting, nausea, and worse. When they complained to the doctors, their symptoms were dismissed as psychological, as psychosomatic, as if their pain wasn't real, as if their bodies weren't screaming for help. And when 3 women died during the trials, nothing happened. No investigation, no autopsy. The deaths were never explained. The experiments simply continued for years. Women kept taking a pill that had killed others, and no one told them. Meanwhile, in the American South, Black women faced a different but equally brutal reality. As documented by multiple historical researchers, Black women in the 1950s and 1960s were being sterilized at more than 3 times the rate of white women. Some went to the hospital to give birth and came home unable to have more children. It was called the Mississippi appendectomy, unnecessary hysterectomies performed on Black women as practice for medical students. According to the ACLU's documentation of North Carolina's eugenics program, between 1960 and 1968, the state approved 1,620 sterilizations. Of those, 1,023 were performed on Black women. 56% were performed on Black women under the age of 20, young girls, barely teenagers, and the medical establishment was erasing their futures. In some cases, doctors didn't even pretend to ask for consent. In others, they coerced illiterate mothers into signing documents they couldn't read. One mother was forced to sign with an X. She had no idea she was consenting to sterilize her own daughters. Minnie Relf and Mary Alice Relf were 12 and 14 years old when doctors at Montgomery Family Planning Clinic sterilized them without their knowledge, without their mother's informed consent, without any explanation of what they'd lost. They were children. They had their entire lives ahead of them, and the government-funded clinics took that away. The cruelest part? While they were sterilizing Black women, they were also testing dangerous contraceptives on them. They were experimenting with versions of the pill, with injections, with devices, all without warning, all without choice, and it was all funded by the government. According to declassified records, federal dollars paid for these programs. The same government that claimed to care about women's rights was funding the destruction of Black women's reproductive freedom. The same government that spoke of progress was committing crimes against humanity in the name of science. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, pushed for these programs. Clarence Gamble, a wealthy heir to the Procter & Gamble fortune, established clinics specifically designed to test contraceptives on poor women. They justified it with the language of eugenics, the same ideology that had informed Nazi sterilization programs. They said they were helping. They said they were giving women choices, but choice requires information. Choice requires consent. Choice requires respect, and none of that was given. By 1960, when the pill was finally approved by the FDA, it carried a dark secret. It had been perfected through the suffering of women of color. White women across America were marketed the pill as freedom in a tablet. Magazines celebrated it as liberation, as independence, as progress. But for Puerto Rican women and Black women, it was a symbol of betrayal. It was a reminder that their bodies had been used, their pain had been ignored, their deaths had been covered up, and the world had celebrated their victimization as science. Even now, decades later, many of these women have never told anyone what happened to them. They carry the shame, they carry the trauma, they carry the knowledge that their own government, their own doctors, their own medical system saw them as expendable, as test subjects, as less than human. In 1976, the government finally created regulations requiring informed consent before sterilization, but by then, it was too late. Estimates suggest that between 100,000 and 150,000 poor women had already been sterilized without their knowledge. The damage was permanent. The betrayal was irreversible. The pill that liberated white women was built on the bodies of women of color. And America has never fully reckoned with that truth. So here's what you need to do. Share this. Comment what you learned. Subscribe for the history they don't teach in schools. Because these women deserve to be remembered. They deserve to have their stories told. They deserve justice.